people that say it's not a real triathlon either A, have not done it, or B, have done it and got their butts kicked.
There's always that lingering, can I do this?
There's definitely times during the race that you're gonna struggle.
There were moments where I felt like I was gonna quit, but there's no choice. I had to keep going.
You will never leave any race that will make you as fulfilled like you will when you leave SOS, regardless of what's going on in your life. They look at that second Sunday in September as the point to get to.
I think the SOS Triathlon kind of epitomizes a certain type of lifestyle. It's not the event itself, but the event does represent something bigger.
The course requires a different format, and it requires athletes to respond. If you're a typical triathlete who lives in that type A personality in that box, it has to be I swim, then I bike, then I run. Sure, that's a triathlon. Don wanted to figure out how he could get himself ready for a world championship. The reality is he had a landscape that had 3 mountain lakes, infinite miles of riding, and some of the best running you're going to encounter in the entire world. He said, I've got this natural training ground which lets me ride my bike around some amazing mountains and cliffs. I get to swim in 3 different lakes, but in order to do that, I got to run from those. So now you start to see this thing come together.
The true spirit of the SOS is when you become one with the environment. Those distances were set by nature. All I did was connect the dots.
You're running in a really remote location. You're not running in a community where every mile there's an aid station and everything you need is right there. So you have to mentally prepare yourself. That's what most triathletes aren't ready to do. They don't want to think. They need to say, I only do this. This is how I do it.
You come to appreciate the survival aspect, the rule that whatever you take from the bike to run transition, you have to cross the finish line with it. And there's no outside assistance.
SOS, broken up with the legs, ends up being 30 miles on the bike, roughly just under 19 miles on the run, and a 2.1 mile swim.
It's not your average race. There is no cheering crowd. It is something that you persevered through and survived.
Oh, I signed in already.
It's going to be a good day. It's just going to be cold in water. So try to swim fast, get out of the water as quickly as possible, run like hell.
A little excited, a little anxious, but it's going to be a fun day.
You're walking around, and I know I'm guilty of it, and I'm one of them, but the anxiety level today, like amongst these people, is through the roof.
Looking forward to it. Best day of the year.
Well, George, 2017, survival of the strongest!
The SOS start is divided into 8 waves, each separated by 1-minute intervals to prevent congestion on the bike course. Grant Lastovica takes the early lead, but with so much of the race to go, starting out so aggressive on the bike could end up costing him later.
Let's race, man.
Doing the race, you realize that it's much more than just a typical triathlon. And of course it's different because of its distance, but it's really different because of the people on the course.
I started competing in triathlons back in 2009. 160 plus triathlons later, I'm in the Hall of Fame for the USA Triathlon, and I've inspired people along the way. I've never done a triathlon in this format. The environment, it's going to present a lot of obstacles for myself, but I enjoy the challenge, and the format really intrigued me.
Having done the SOS, I really found that that was a more special race, a more personal race. So I sort of drifted away from the Olympic-style triathlons towards the SOS, and I think every year I've finished in the top 10. I've been second twice, and so far I've not won. I keep coming back, trying. There's kind of a group of guys that do it every year, and we're quite competitive within our group. I try to be quite hard on the bike, and I'll try and be quick in the transitions. You know, there are so many transitions, you can waste a lot of time not being mentally prepared for what you need to do.
So I've been doing triathlons for a really long time, and like many people, I stepped up from the shorter distances to longer ones and did Ironman a few times. I think it took me about 3, 4, 5 SOS to figure out how to do it. And then last year, which was the 12th time I was racing the SOS, it finally came all together and I was able to win. I've never been the defending champion of the SOS before, and maybe there's a little bit of pressure, but it's a very complex race and lots of little mistakes can add up.
Up next, the 30-mile bike course continues. The 2017 SOS Triathlon is brought to you by Cliff Bar, Feed Your Adventure, the New York Triathlete Association, and USA Triathlon. Welcome back to the 2017 Survival of the Shangans. Unlike most triathlons, the SOS starts the first of 8 legs with the bike. It's 30 miles of rolling country roads until the last 5 miles where the competitors face a 1,000-foot elevation gain. Coming into bike transition, each racer is greeted by their crew person who has all of the gear needed for the remainder of their day prepped and ready. Athletes need to finish the race with every article of equipment they leave transition area with. Navigating how to do this is one of the most important strategic components of SOS.
Only see you on the road.
I was fortunate when I got to New Paltz in the area. I met Dr. Mike. I think he is pound for pound the best endurance athlete that I've ever met.
I believe this is my 26th SOS. There's so many Michaels and Mikes around here that Don developed nicknames for all of them. I wasn't Handsome Mike or Sexy Mike, I became Dr. Mike. Maybe I would have preferred to have been one of the others.
SOS is definitely his favorite race ever. We've been to Kona, we've been to Maui, but this is the pinnacle. I think it's the elusive race that he's never won. He's come very close. I call him always the bridesmaid, never the bride. But I think that someday he still could do it. He's that good.
When I was in my late 20s, I was ranked 7th in the country, and then when I hit 40, I was ranked 1st in the country for 40 to 44-year-olds. I've been in love with this race for 26 years, but lately it's a little bit of a metaphor. About 5 years ago, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And when you're hit with something like that, you know, the normal reaction is, all right, well, SOS is a really long, hard race. Maybe this is something that I'm not going to be able to do. And that 1 year, I didn't. But then I missed it. You know, I was still out here, I was volunteering. I really wanted to be part of it again.
I believe one of his MS docs told him, you know, it was important to stay fit. And when you say that to a guy who's done Ironmans all over the world, he took that and said, okay, great, I'm going to work harder. Spends the next year and a half tweaking diet, tweaking workouts, managing meds, and all of a sudden he's faster.
I've been able to continue to lead an active life, and that is what makes me happy. And then a year and a half ago, I was diagnosed with melanoma.
He said, nope, we're going to figure this out. So over the course of the year, this guy starts treatments for melanoma, has surgeries, and gets himself ready to race at SOS. And partway through the summer, a routine checkup revealed worse news, that the cancer had spread, and it had spread to his brain. He said, we're going to figure it out. You know, I'm scared, but I'm going to show up.
I thought, well, this might be my last chance to do it. I'm going to do it. Chemo went great. I had surgery about 6 months later, and right now I'm what they call NED, no evidence of disease. They don't really call it remission. Well, the race, it's a metaphor for my life, is that, you know, I want to be a survivor, both in the race, and also I want to survive next year, and I want to be a survivor the year after that. But in that other race, I'm still in it and still hoping to become a survivor.
He has this drive where he won't give up. And he said to me in the beginning of the cancer diagnosis, don't let me give up. The SOS, you know, the tagline is survivor. And you've got to take what you've got from life, and you got to get from point A to point B. It doesn't matter if you look pretty. It doesn't matter if you get tired or frustrated. That is really sort of a mantra for him. Just get from here to there and do it however you can. Last year after the race, I told him, you know, this isn't the last time you're going to be doing this. This isn't his last hurrah. And this year, the hashtag is going to be, I told you so.
Coming out of the bike transition is a 4-mile run leading to Lake Owasting. It's not the longest run on the course, but it is one of the most challenging, as it's home to Cardiac Hill, which reaches a 20% incline at its steepest point. Relative newcomer to SOS, Bucky Schaefer leads on course, but it's actually defending champion Stefan Judix with the fastest time so far since Judix started in the third wave, 2 minutes behind Schaefer. Schaefer is an ex-pro triathlete who's only survived this race once, whereas Judix is racing his 13th SOS. This run leads athletes on a trail circumnavigating the lake they're about to swim, the unseasonably cold water instilling a mix of dread and anticipation into the oncoming pack of racers. Up next, the first and longest swim, Lake Owasting. Welcome back to the SOS Triathlon. Going into the third leg and the first swim, defending champion Stefan Judix has the lead by 30 seconds, while SOS newcomer Bucky Schaefer enters the lake first as he started 2 minutes ahead. Philip Vondra, who finished second last year, trails close behind. Coming out of Lake Owasting, Judix widens his lead to just under a minute, while Mike Halstead moves into 5th place, stealing the position from local athlete who finished first off the bike, Michael Back.
You literally swim the length of the lake, and you quickly realize it's about to get real, because now you meet things like cramps in your legs from the cold water and everything that you've never experienced before. That's the first time that SOS makes sense. I think of SOS as it's organic before organic was cool. The people that say it's not a real triathlon either A, have not done it, or B, have done it and got their butts kicked.
Shortly after I did Hawaii Ironman back in 1999, one of the triathlon magazines had an article about what they felt were the most unique showcase races. And the one that really captured me was this race called Survival of the Shawangunks. And here I am living in South Kona, dreaming about, like, I wonder what this race is really like. Little did I know that, many years later, that I would actually be here in New Paltz and be part of this incredible athletic community.
There's a special feeling about the race, and I think it all stems back to how the race began.
My dad started directing triathlons with the first New York City triathlon in 1980. So the SOS lineage goes back to the beginning of the sport itself. Listen, people weren't even really taking long jogs in the 1970s or 80s. I remember when I was a little kid, friends would see me in school and say, I saw your father running down the street. I was wondering who was chasing him.
One thing about Don is he always has a goal. And once he reaches his goal, he has the next goal, and then the next goal.
I wanted to qualify for the Ironman. At that time, there was just one Ironman, and that was in Kona, Hawaii. And I live in the valley here, and the only way to get to a beautiful lake to swim was by cycling there. So I used to cycle up to Lake Owasting parking lot, and then I discovered that it was so beautiful up there. And I wanted to not only do it and train for the Ironman, but I also wanted to share it with people.
How are you going to keep your feet dry?
I'm not.
Swimming with these shoes?
Yeah. I like to think of it in terms of if you see a 2-year-old kid that writes his name beautifully, and then you realize that all he's doing is connecting the dots. And in the Shonga Mountains, the dots are Owasting, Minnewaska, and Mohawk.
The event, I don't want to say sort of developed itself, but it certainly took on a life of its own. I remember my father discovering and creating more and more challenging workouts, stringing together the most beautiful parts of the area. The beginning years of the SOS was my mom and dad and some close friends taking over the house completely with envelopes and pictures and a lot of laughs.
Everything happened in our home. Our family, our friends, we're all involved from the beginning. The community took to it very quickly.
People get so emotional about SOS. I mean, there are people that life has changed them. They've dealt with cancer, they've dealt with death, and they want to be here. And that's something that I think he sits back, and I think Darlene sits back and says, well, gee, we've done this right.
He's galvanized an entire community here behind what he does. And this race, what he's done for the sport of triathlon, I mean, I can't even measure in words.
At 1.1 miles, Lake Owasting is the first and longest of the 3 swims. As cramping sets in and the athletes emerge with wet and dirty gear they now have to use for the rest of the day, the raw survivor aspect of this race reveals itself to new and veteran competitors alike. Next, the run to Castle Point with the 2017 Survival of the Shangums. Welcome back to the SOS Triathlon. Right now, competitors are making their way through the second of 4 run legs, 5.5 miles that we call Castle Rock.
Any better than this?
The true spirit of the SOS is when you become one with the environment and you're spiritually engaged with where you are.
I got here in the summer of '99. A year comes around and you start training with Don, and we're out on runs, and we crest the top of one of the mountains here in the Shangums, and you're looking out this view. Don would stop everybody. And it's like, wait a minute, why are we stopping? Like, come on, we're hammered, we're hammered. And he'd be like, Shangum moment. And it's like, what the hell is a Shangum moment? And I'm thinking, this is an excuse for this guy to catch his breath. I don't have time for this. And then slowly you start to realize the value of that.
The parkland that we run through is on the Shangum Ridge. So Shangum moment is when you take a moment to yourself and you look around and you realize that the real purpose of being out there that day is for that moment, and not for the rest of the 6 or 7 or 8 hours.
There's so many spots on this course where either you can see the tower from 20 miles away, or you run around the edge of a cliff, you can see the ridge going all the way down into New Jersey. You have to stop and smell the flowers. You have to stop and enjoy the view.
Some people define the Shawangunk moment as kind of this majestic, I'm swimming and I look to the side and I see this spectacular hotel, or sometimes it's when you're running and you look over and you see the cliffs. To me, because I think the course is so challenging, the truest Shawangunk moment I had was when I was racing and I was in second, and I was destined for second. I was not going to catch the guy in front of me, and we were both going up this last big hill, and we were basically both walking. I mean, it was a disaster. And I was like, this is the most pathetic first and second place finish in the history of racing. But we were both pushing ourselves like to the utmost limit. Like, it was everything we had, just kind of walk up that hill. And that was kind of the essence. It's not pretty. We were doing our best. He was going to win. I was going to finish a few minutes behind him. But that's just what it is. You kind of get distilled to that.
Going into Lake Minnewaska, Bucky Schaefer finally steals the lead from Stefan Judix, leading by 51 seconds with a half-mile swim ahead of him.
You're looking strong.
Okay, watch it, shallow.
But it's just, he's only got a minute after the handicap.
Philip Vondra, Keith Struther, and Grant Lestovica round out the top 5, while Mike Halstead is narrowing his sights on the leader.
Let's go! Let's go!
Good job.
Hold!
always the issue. Take the work, and that's a good thing. Best day of the year!
In the half-mile swim, Halstead is able to make up time, moving him into 5th place, while Schaefer and Judix continue to battle for 1st. Up next, we're into the second half of the 2017 SOS Triathlon. Welcome back to the SOS Triathlon, as we head into leg 6 of 8, the third and longest run, lasting 8 miles that culminates with a hill known as Godzilla. Going into leg 6, Bucky Schaefer and Stefan Judix continue to fight for 1st place. Philip Vondra and Keith Struther remain steady in 3rd and 4th, while Mike Halstead continues to gain on the leaders and is now in 5th place.
The traps run, the 8-mile run from Minnewaska to Mohonk, that's where you can really catch people. If there's, anyone has any doubt at that point, any cracks appearing, they'll be exposed there on that section.
There's definitely times during the race that you're gonna struggle. And you can learn a little bit about yourself, and you learn how to push through that last 8-mile run. It's easy to just cruise it and run maybe 10 minutes slower than you're capable of, but you need to keep the gas on and maybe get out of your comfort zone a little bit, and that's so cool when you are able to do that.
A big part of the SOS is the mental game, and your training can get you ready to finish and feel strong, but there's moments on that race course where you start to question, can I keep going?
We got water. We got Gatorade.
Almost there.
There's always that lingering, can I do this, doubt. And I know I can get through it, but you have to overcome your own fears. Overcoming fear is not something you always think of when you think of going out for a run or a bike, but it's there.
I love what the sport provides for me. It clears my head when I'm out there. I'm in good shape and I'm inspiring people. I wasn't a swimmer, I wasn't a cyclist, and I hated running. There was no reason for me to do a triathlon, but I just like the obstacles. I like the challenge of overcoming these obstacles. How does a guy without arms swim? How does he ride a bike? Even running is an issue. There's no room for excuses from anybody saying they can't do something, and I wanted to prove that. Back on March 31st, 1992, I was working as an electrician down in South Florida. At the end of the day, my job was to remove some equipment from the deactivated transformer. And as I'm walking between two of them, the one on the right was on, the one on the left was off. I made a right turn, climbed up the structure, and pow, 13,000 volts of electricity hit me twice. I was in a coma for a month, in the hospital for about 2 months. I had a 1-year-old daughter at the time, and that's when I realized, listen, I'm alive. Yeah, both arms were amputated, but I had to think about my daughter. It's always been about thinking about others. I just don't have time to feel sorry for myself. So when I go out there, I don't say, oh, I could swim faster if I had arms. No, I just, what do I have left? Let me maximize on it. There wasn't much out there for someone like me, and I had to create my own devices. The original bike, what I did is I moved the brakes from the handlebars to the frame, and I used my right knee to apply the brakes. Shifting early on, I couldn't shift, so any race I did it in the hardest gear, and I had to gut through it. Now with the electronic shifting, it's put into place where I can actually shift using my chin. It may not be the fastest time out there, but I'm gonna finish. The past year and a half, I've been racing on behalf of children with disabilities. And my goal is to be their Superman, their hero, the guy they look up to and say, he can do it, I can do it too. I've dedicated each and every medal that I get to a different child. In this race, I'm dedicating it to a local young woman who's 21 years old, and her name is Taylor. She's gone through all kinds of issues with an arm, with paralysis on one side. She's gonna have all kinds of obstacles. So I'm dedicating the medal and the race to her in the hopes that she won't see any obstacles in her life that she can't overcome. There is no way I could even imagine being where I am today 25 years ago. Just things happen in life. That's why you never regret what happened in the past, because it may change everything. I don't regret the accident. I don't regret losing the arms. There's nothing cooler than passing somebody on the bike and they have to do a double take because the guy without arms just passed him. I got no time to think about the pain or the cold or anything like that. It's about finishing the race and getting this medal for Taylor.
All right. Up next, the last swim of the 2017 SOS Triathlon. Welcome back to the 2017 SOS Triathlon.
One of the things that's just incredible about the race, we have more volunteers by far than athletes. And those volunteers just put their heart and soul into the race.
There's only 150 people that get into SOS every year. There's 250 volunteers. And what's amazing about it is you've got volunteers that have been here for 10, 15, 20 years. And these people know the race, and they know what the mission and the spirit and the passion of the race is about. They know what Don's goal as a volunteer was. You have people that literally fight to be at places to see people in a good way. There's so many personalities. You've got doctors, you've got lawyers, you've got police officers, firefighters, nurses, school teachers. They probably get as much from it as the athletes because for them, they got to be part of this thing that showcases what we know is survival of the Shangans.
The majority of volunteers have been here almost from the beginning. And it's interesting because in town, I hear people talking about the SOS, and they're talking about their spot in the race. People really have ownership of their involvement and commitment to the SOS. It's a highlight that a lot of people in the community who volunteer look forward to. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
The volunteers every step of the way are there. And I didn't always see that when I was just a crew person and, cheering. But as an athlete, everywhere you go, they're there. They're giving you water and food, and they're helping where they can. I really appreciate that now, going through the whole race from beginning to end, the importance of those volunteers.
Lake Mohonk. It's the last swim of the SOS course and lies almost 300 feet beneath the survivor line at Skytop Tower. This final swim gives athletes a half mile to make any final gains. Bucky Schaefer enters the water first, ahead of Philip Vondra, who is now in second place after overtaking Stefan Judix during the 8-mile Traps Bridge run. Judix trails just behind in third place. The first female competitor, Julie Davenport, makes her way across Lake Mohonk with relentless determination, minutes ahead of the next female racer. Up next, the climb to Skytop Tower at the 2017 SOS Triathlon. Welcome back to the conclusion of the 2017 SOS Triathlon, presented by Cliff Bar, Feed Your Adventure, the New York Triathlete Association, and Mohonk Mountain House. The final leg is a 0.7-mile climb to the iconic Skytop Tower overlooking the Mohonk Mountain House as well as the entire SOS racecourse. Going into the final climb of the SOS course, Bucky Schaefer still holds the first place slot. Philip Vondra, who spent most of his race in third place, has now overtaken Stefan Judix for second place, while Keith Struther maintains fourth and Mike Halstead is currently in fifth place.
Mr. Bucky Schaefer, you are a survivor!
That's amazing. I love the Mohonk Preserve and the Gums. I've probably done over 50 triathlons, and this one's really special. The format, the setting, and also the local community and involvement.
As Schaefer completes his second ever SOS Triathlon with a win, longtime survivor and last year's second place finisher, Philip Vondra claims second place once again.
You are a survivor!
I went basically as fast as I could go, so, you know, you lay it all out there, I don't need to complain at all. So, yeah, I'm happy with it. Second last year, second this year, so I'm still working on first place. That'll have to be next year.
Congratulations, man. Awesome job. Very well done. 4:46.46.
So what I love about the SOS is still the same what I loved 10 years ago or 15 years ago. It's the unique character, it's the family, and it's just a fantastic feeling to be back here.
When you cross the finish line, you know you did something really impressive. And I think no matter what place you finish, no matter what your time was, there's an incredible sense of pride of kind of crossing the finish line because you know you did something that's really hard, because you know that you pushed yourself against kind of all discomfort and elements and all that kind of stuff.
You are a survivor. Great race. A survivor! You are a survivor!
The top 5 male competitors finished the epic battle with Bucky Schaefer in first, Philip Vondra in second, Stefan Judix in third, Keith Struther in fourth, and Mike Halstead in fifth.
That's going to be athlete number 242. Julie, you are a survivor!
It's one of the hardest for this distance. So to come across first, it's so exciting.
On the women's side, the 2017 top 5 survivors are Julie Davenport in first, Sarah Knox in second, Ari Spalding in third, Karen Finnerty in fourth, and Eve Campo in fifth.
You are a survivor!
It is a big family reunion at the top of the mountain when everybody's there and they see their athlete finish and sharing stories about the race. It's really like coming home. You get to watch the various stages of people's lives, and it's the best thing in the world.
Lanahan, Kevin, you are a survivor. Hey, Elise, guess what? You are a survivor, young lady.
There's no way I can train for this living in South Florida. This course is serious. This would challenge anybody. I know where I can get better, but I mean, I found myself stopping at places like this and just, let it all sink in. It's a wonderful course and very difficult, but there's no pain, no gain. I believe that I accomplished something today, and I got a medal for Taylor.
Yeah, I love it.
Every race, I try to race for somebody else, and in this case, I raced for Taylor. There were moments where I felt like I was quit, but there's no choice. I had to keep going, and the medal's for her, not for me, and I want her to look at that and say, "Wow, I can do anything. If he can do it, I can do it too." Because you inspired me to keep going. At the end, I felt like quitting. But there's no choice, you can't quit in life. You gotta keep going.
I'm gonna cry. Okay, you're gonna cry.
So it's a pleasure to meet you.
You too, thank you.
So, can I have a hug?
Yes, thank you.
It's nice to get number 26 under my belt.
26-time You are a survivor.
I want to hear those words for a long time. So it's good to hear it. I still want to be a survivor next year, and the next year, and the next year. But as far as being a cancer survivor, it's like I'm still in that race. Certainly another small victory on the way to hopefully the big one. I really want to be a survivor 25 more times.
I think the definition of family can be extended beyond genetic links to emotional links, so that people who bond through SOS develop into a family. The most satisfying thing in my life probably was doing the race 3 times with my son, and my wife has always been supportive of my triathlon endeavors, so it's always been, a family affair.
When people think about SOS, they think about the unique challenge, and everyone immediately starts to think about themselves and how they're going to do it and how they're going to overcome these things. Cold weather, cold water. There's a lot of SOS racers that will take that day on the calendar and put it out there as an inspiration to get them through tough times. They might be going through chemo, they may be going through the loss of a family member, but they look at that second Sunday in September as the point to get to. And then they get to the SOS starting line, and they see the family that's there, and they start to relax just a little bit. And on a day like today, we were fortunate, we could see Skytop Tower, which means the weather was going to be amazing. And then, as we say go, you see a lot of those anxious faces start to smile. And as you see them go through the course, whether it's on the bike or those runs, they start to get more and more confidence and more reminder of what SOS is about, which is coming through and delivering on the promise you make to yourself, which is, I'm going to be a survivor.